gonna mute myself just in case my daughter starts making noise. So
Yeah, don't even worry about that if she does. So
okay.
to give context, Sony, you had a buyer that has decided to move on to another agent to be able to help reach their goals of buying a home. In discussing this previously with Sony, we I got to the question of, do you feel like this buyer will transact with any agent at this point? And there's not a lot of confidence from her. So Sony, if you don't mind, tell me what this buyer is looking for. Let's just pick it from the top. Like tell me what they want, tell me what they need, like what,
So
as much as
she's
you can.
looking, yeah, she's looking to buy a house in Brighton because of the Brighton school. She was I mean, she had pre-approval from with premium for 350,000, and now because after her full-time job, she's actually approved up to 400,000.
Okay, good.
But she was all the time looking into market, like going crazy. She actually knows every single house in the Brighton. I don't know what she does, like working. I don't know, like
Okay.
over smart client, I would say.
Well, that's good to know from the context of you're gonna, that's a personality type of your client, right? So you're gonna need to adapt and match that at times, right? To work best. But that's a good little tidbit. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So $400,000 in Brighton.
Yes.
What's your confidence that she can make that happen based on the type of home that she wants in Brighton?
I mean, I sometimes felt like she was okay. I mean, as soon as I start writing the offer, and then she will text me saying, like, I feel like this house should be priced at this much. I'm like, but we already talked about that. Like, because of the market, we are doing all this and we are going little over because there is no way we can get the house anything in 250. And she's like, no, but I feel like so every time I think she was questioning me that I don't know. She's like, oh, I did the comps by myself, and I know Keller Williams is not giving you the right number. I'm like, it's not about Keller Williams. So I felt at one point like she was just questioning, no matter what I say.
Okay. In your opinion, was she wrong as to what she was questioning you with or the points she was trying to make?
Sometimes, yes, I felt like that was not right because the way she was telling me in my neighborhood, houses should be your basement is different, your neighbor's basement is different. I mean, that's something out of my control. I don't build or I don't construct all these houses. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, she needs to understand like things are already built, already constructed. You are going to look for the house. If it suits you, then let's put the offer. If not, then move on. But not to sit there and talk about the same house for a million times and telling me that I don't know anything about Brighton. I'm like, okay.
There. Well, what would be a way to, prove yourself right,
Mm,
right?
I,
Versus going out and trying to prove a client wrong can be a dangerous,
yeah.
practice, right?
Jason, honestly, I was not trying to prove her wrong, but every time when she was coming up with questions, I felt like I need to do more research. She's talking about this community, which has this floor plan. I'm like, I don't have really a time to look into every single house listed here. If it's not gonna, I don't know. That's how I felt. I'm like, she's just going crazy. And I just couldn't keep up with her work, I guess.
Well, but was there a way to, get to a point where it's like, hey, can you show data, from the MLS and deliver it in a manner to where it's like, hey, I just want to let you know this isn't just Keller Williams specific data. Here's the entire market, right? Can you get tactical like that with clients to where it's don't have them take your word for it, show them. And how do you do that? And Ryan, Lauren, feel free to chime in with any questions, thoughts, just how you would approach it. But
I mean, I would
this top, go ahead.
I would touch and maybe approach it like you're not necessarily going at the value of the house. You're looking at more or less what people are going to be willing to pay for it. And I mean, yeah, as you said, like giving her sold transactions, solid closed transactions where it's like, hey, these houses are, you know, selling for this amount because people are willing to kind of bid up and pay on them there, you know?
And doing that by showing as you know, how do you know, it's like the mission becomes when you have people that are having trouble understanding, right? Or having trouble, you know, believing you be a thing. You know, what can you do to get them to believe? What can you show them to get them to understand? And this business, you know, really all, you know, a lot of it comes down to tangible data. And it's there for us to use as a tool to be able to help educate and inform people, but also to get to a point of deciding where it's like, you know, we may not be a fit to work together because, you know, you're looking at the market differently than what it is what I think is happening with this client. So
I mean, not to be selfish, but I feel like, okay, that new agent needs to understand, and I hope she feels the same way that I did, because I worked hard. I really did. I was just trying to help her to find a right house within her budget and everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that she's not with me anymore, to be honest.
well, so let's look at this, you know, because it's kind of, you know, okay, this exercise here when we have hindsight, right, is different, but it's important to do. So what can you tell me? I know Brighton, so Brighton School District, anywhere in the school
Right.
district, or
Correct. Yeah.
okay, and what up to 400, right?
But she was qualified, but she doesn't wanted to pay. She just wanted
What?
to pay the minimum. Like if house is listed for 350, she wants to start with 325. And I don't know.
Okay, well, let's do this. What is her comfortable budget for purchasing a home with?
So monthly payment should not be more than 2,400.
Okay, and what about cash out of pocket to purchase a home with?
Oh, she was fine with that. I mean, she didn't wanted to do cash guarantee or any cash, but I know she told me like she do have money. And even Steve from Prime, I mean, it's not Prime, sorry, Premium, he said like she got money, she can definitely do cash guarantee, but I guess she was not ready to take that risk.
Okay, but so here's where I want you to go, everybody here, where I want you to go with your consultations with buyers is to get them to dictate these two numbers to you. Get them to determine what are you comfortable with spending per month for housing. And if it needs to go into the details to where you have to get them to understand, like separate a mortgage payment from your, you know, utilities and your garbage bill and your cable and internet and all that. But just, you know, just to get them to think from a budget standpoint, what do you want to spend per month on a housing payment? You know, make it seem equivalent to paying rent to a landlord. Because the reality is for a lot and most homeowners, it is equivalent to that because you have your mortgage payment in a monthly payment. You also have taxes and property insurance. A lot of times they're going to be escrowed in. So that payment that goes to the bank to cover all three of those items is basically the equivalent of paying rent to a landlord because then you have utilities, cable, groceries, just life, right? In terms of how to budget for things. So get them to think of it that way first, to where you're coming out of it with, okay, you know, no matter what pre-approval wise, we don't want to exceed this amount per month because, you know, it's just, and maybe I'm biased, but I guess it's important to go at this from a human standpoint, right? Of how they need to be thinking of their finances. Any questions on that? The second part of the financial equation that you're starting this conversation with is, okay, I'm not asking what your life savings is, but what are you comfortable with bringing to the table in terms of cash to go towards down payment and closing costs? It should really start with, I need you to determine what your financial comfort zone is in searching for a home and purchasing a home, not go get pre-approved and have that number spit out and run with that, or not I like these $400,000 homes and I want to figure out a way to buy that, at least absent of, trying to stay in a financial comfort zone. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Just knowing she has the cash, knowing that she is approved, like good. You were close here, Sony, in terms of like like good for you for knowing that monthly payment comfort zone. There could have been, usage to where it's like if you knew the cash number and you knew, how she's feeling about being competitive, you may have been able to get her to realize like, hey, I get you want to get the best deal for you, but this house isn't going to be it from the standpoint of just coming in guns a-blazing negotiating, because I already determined there's like 7 offers in hand already. So now it becomes like, do you want this house or not? And what are you willing to do to go after it and be competitive to get it? And when you know these numbers, now you're in a position, especially with somebody like Premium, where they have the calculator that you can just use, you can play around with it. And it's like, hey, good news. Like it's listed at 350. We can go up to your max at 400, and you're going to be at 2,300 a month. And you're going to be this amount of cash to close, which if you had that info, you could, say is over the budget or under the budget, whatever. But you gotta, I think the first point with this buyer is, getting it to that point where you're in a position to be able to get them to understand the numbers associated with it versus just, it's more, correct me where I'm wrong, Sony, but like out of principle, they didn't want to compete. And that's a dangerous place to be. See, off mute now. Like, would you describe that as accurate?
Yeah, because I feel like that's how she was. She doesn't wanted to compete. I mean, she was,
Yep.
even though she was qualified, she had money, but she's kind of like going like, oh no, I don't want to pay because this house is not worth this much. But I keep telling her the same thing, the market, it's not about, I mean, Shannon told me like
Well-
how to talk to her, but I guess it didn't work out. Still it didn't. I think she was just, I don't know.
Well, let's keep exploring this buyer. So far, Brighton, 400,000. How many bedrooms does she need?
At least 3. 2 is fine, but she definitely was more for 3 because her parents come and stay here from India, and she has a son.
Plug in the MLS here. How many bathrooms? So minimum 3, right?
2. Yep.
Minimum 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, or
Yes, 2 full bathroom.
what else does she need to have in this home in Brighton? This could be a single family or a townhome condo, or just single family.
Initially, she wanted a single family, but then she, again, she did her research and she's like, townhouse would be cheaper than single family for her. So I'm like, okay. So when I did her search, I did like both of them, condos and single family, just to make sure that we are not missing out anything.
Okay. Anything else in terms of what she's searching for?
No, Brighton School was number 1 for her.
Brighton School, minimum 3 beds, minimum 2 full baths. Doesn't matter size, could be small, doesn't have to be big. Lot size doesn't matter. Basement. Okay, cool. So, I'm just keeping this vague to kind of go through an exercise here. Like where we're at right now is with what she wants, does it exist and is it possible to get in today's market? Okay. This is the exercise we're doing right now. So there's been a total of 164 homes that have listed and sold in Brighton School District that are at least 3 bedrooms and at least 2 full bathrooms listed, sold in the last year. Single families and townhomes. Now let's see what happens if we say 400 and under to that list. It goes down to 54. Okay, now that's a fair amount of homes. Just understand that 54 divided by 164 is 33%. Meaning right off the bat, there's a 33% chance of what exists or that what she wants exists in Brighton. fair way of looking at it? I mean, I'm just curious here. I want to see
Yes.
how many of those would have been cash only type of deals. Or went down to 20. She needs financing, right?
Yes.
All right, so now we're down to 21. How is that right? There are that many? Sorry. 21. Yeah, there's a lot of cash only deals that went on there. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Erase the tape. That's terms of sale, possible financing. My bad. Don't pay attention to me. All right. Okay. So now we got all the financing types. Okay. Sorry. Ignore that. So 53, so basically the same numbers. There was only one of those 54 homes that had to be sold cash. Okay. Um, what did, you know, like what kind of home did she like and what did she not like? Like were there, if you're looking at this list, was there anything on here that you could pinpoint that she didn't like? Like was she picky?
Yes, kind of, because she
Okay.
will like everything, and then in the basement she will go and she will find something saying like, "Oh no, this is not the right size of the basement. I want, if I'm paying, I want to use it." But she was like comparing every single house with some ex house, and then she was like, "No." So I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So I keep trying to tell her like floor plans are gonna be different. Like in Branchwood, I mean, she came with another realtor in my neighborhood and looking for house the other day, and she told me this morning like, "Oh, you know that I came there and all this stuff, but their basement is not as huge as you have in your house." I'm like, "Oh man." I'm like,
Well, so they, you know, let me ask it this way. How many homes did she like that would sell way over 400,000?
way over 400,000. We didn't
Or
actually
like,
look
were
into
the
it.
ones that she really liked selling way above 400,000?
There was one Brittany Commons, I remember that one. And then there was one in Montpelier. It's in Brighton. Everything was in Brighton. They didn't go over like that much, honestly. We put the offer for 325 or 340 and it went over for 360. So it was not really going crazy, but she didn't wanted to take a risk of going over. Like
Listen, like
10,000, 5,000. That's kind of her max thing.
the good news here is that you had a buyer that it would be possible to get them, you know, into a home. And the reason I'm spending so much time on this right now with y'all is that, like, you have to understand the first step of the consultation process is to consult with them in a manner that you leave that step with their needs analysis conducted. They've told you what they want, what they need, and they've told you their thoughts of, like, how they're going to go about getting it. And then you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I can make that happen. No problem. If
But
you're
Jason, so when I did the initial consultation, and I already told her in Brighton, we have to go over just because of how the market is currently. But if when we started putting the offers on, and I mean, she said like, "Oh no, let's start with lower price." I mean, do you mean below listing price? And she's like, "Yeah, because I don't think this house is worth for this money." So I'm
well,
like, okay. So we will go like 350 house. If it's listed for 350, we'll start with 325 and go to 360. So I'm like, okay. I knew it when I was
I
doing
get it.
offers.
I'm gonna get to how to address that. I just want to stay on the step of the consultation where we don't move on to working with somebody or even consulting further if we feel like there's no chance of them getting, like what they want doesn't exist. And here at this example, we determined that there's a 33% chance that it exists. So, not awesome, but me personally, like I wouldn't walk away from that opportunity just because I know what the odds are. But that does inform me that, it is less than 50% chance, and we really need to have a polished strategy and approach to getting this done from here. So just as a quick like lesson, the first part of the consultation when you're talking with a buyer or a seller is, hey, what do you need? What do you want? How do you want to go about doing it? Like I refer to a lot as like what's the who, what, where, when, why, how of their situation. Try to get all those answers and determine for yourself, like, okay, I can work with that. We can make that happen. That's definitely attainable. Or like, yeah, no, if this were like $200,000 in Brighton, right, you wouldn't have gotten this far. You would have said right from the start, like, listen, like, let me tell you, it's going to be really low, but there's one house listed and sold in Brighton out of the 164, I think there was, that sold for 200 or under. Those aren't odds that you want to take on as an agent to go try to help somebody with. See what I'm explaining? Just as a tactical, how to approach a new opportunity with a buyer. Run it through this filter first step of like, can I help you? Based on what you want, what you need, and how you're thinking you want to go about it. Then it gets into, okay, how are we going to work together in order to, make what you want and need come to be reality? And that's where there was, the differences between this buyer and just how things played out is she wanted to go about it a different way than what you were, trying to get across to her as professional recommendations designed to reach her goals. She thought she had a better way than, your way.
Yes,
So now, go ahead.
yes. No, I definitely, that's how I felt. She thought like she has a better way of doing it than what I was telling her.
So with people like this, with circumstances like this is where back to like you have to lean into the data that's available for you to take and use it. Right. And for an example, like, and here, so the data is one, and then I'm going to give you the second part that makes this key. So like that example or whatever example where it's like it's listed at 350, it's sold at 360, and she wanted to go in at 325. Well, when you find out that sells at 360, that's not throw it in your face, right? But that's hey, like I just want to follow back to this one that, didn't work out. It did sell for 360. The powerful step that you need to take in order to get people to think differently and to make progress to the goals that you have for them and how to help them is to ask questions that become painful in a way. Right? So that it's the questions at that point after delivering that data of something to the effect of do you have any questions or what's your opinion on what this house is worth now that we know it's sold for 360? Because if she answers like, well, I think it's still worth 325, like now that you have a disconnect that you can address with them to where it's like, okay, we got to talk because this is kind of dangerous in terms of how you're thinking about real estate in general and this market if you want to commit to doing something. Because I just, like, I don't mean to say I told you so or that I'm trying to prove myself right, but I just showed you that unfortunately this home isn't worth 325 like you want it to be. And like help me understand how that's not going to apply to every house that we go spend time on together. And then stop and wait for her to respond. Like ball in her court at that point. We left off on like, hey, like I got to know more about how you're thinking about this real estate market in relation to your goals. Tell me what's going to happen on the next house that I'm giving you advice on where it's going to sell. And Do you want to do the opposite? Because if it's determined that it comes to light, it's just like, well, no, it's outside of my principle. I would never offer asking price or above. Then it's okay. Listen, like in a way, I get it. You know, I understand. Maybe you haven't, been familiar with this local real estate market here for the number of years that we've been in these conditions, but right now our average list to sales price ratio is 120% in the entire county. So how are we going to be successful with a strategy where our strategy is to go under list price to get you a house that you want? There's a difference between taking orders from your clients and being the captain of the ship on the cruise to their goals. And a lot of times, yeah, it requires a difficult conversation. And if you get to the point where it's like, I've done everything possible to get you to understand, and it's just not working, and it's becoming a burden on my time and my, energy and everything else, then yeah, you'll have to fire people in this business. You just got to make sure that you challenge their status quo as much as possible to have it be in a place where it's yeah, there was nothing else I could have done. So I want to stay on this topic in terms of like the difficult conversations that we have to have with clients or prospects, and especially relevant to, the agents that are in this program at various stages. Like, you may not know what to say. You may not know how to approach it. So how do you get those answers? How do you get those strategies? Does anybody have any methods? Well, I'll give you the cheat code. I'm right here.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't have any for sure.
So yeah, I do think it's like leaning on who we have at KW. Because I'm with Sony. I feel like I'm going through the same thing too. Like, and I'm now realizing too, maybe at my consult I was not proactive enough or digging deep enough to know,
Yeah.
Will this person really listen to me, or will they listen to their aunt, and we're back doing this thing all over again.
Real talk, right? Because that's the way people are. And it's not their fault, and it's not about right or wrong. A lot of this, what it comes down to, is you protecting you and your business and their best interest in doing so. Okay, so like the answer to my question of like, how do you find out? Like, one, you have to be a seeker, and you have to be vulnerable to understand, like, at this point in your career, you don't know even a, percentage of a percentage of all the things that you need to know in the grand scheme of things. So you have to first recognize that that's the reality, and that's okay. That's not a judgment, but that's just reality of, like, where you're always going to be at in your career, frankly. Nobody here has it all figured out. But those that are most successful are the seeker to go out and get the answers to what is timely to figure out. Now, I think what you have to understand and you have to wrap your head around is this overall concept of, making sure that, that analogy I gave, that you're the captain of the cruise ship, you're bringing them to their destination, which is their goals of buying or selling or investing in real estate. So you need to make sure that there's a way that you're taking on to advise them on how to go about reaching those goals. So if you're not really sure what that way should be, that's fine. Go out and be the seeker and seek the answers to develop your own way. you've got it right in front of, for I think all but one of you, like between Shannon and myself. And then Lauren, you have Jesse, like you have direct help that is part of the program that you signed up for. There's a ton of other resources in this program as well. But you have to be proactive to identify what it is that you need help with, and then go out and seek the answers, or at least the resources as to where you're going to get the answers from. Now I'm gonna I introduced it the last call that we had 2 weeks ago before Memorial Day. But I talked about a couple AI features, one with GRAR and one with KW. Generally speaking, like just when you think AI, think like really high-powered Google in a way.
Not for nothing, but I use ChatGPT for I use the paid version too, but it helps me so much with just getting like a second answer or kind of like helping me
Well, quick help
solidify my
on
thoughts
demand
and give me a
help.
little direction.
Yeah. Listen, like I'm not afraid to run a coaching business, which is what I do, and tell people to utilize a free coach, a free resource, or even the paid version of it. Because it's more and more becoming a way of the world that, like, to function at the highest level possible is you're now like, you know, powered by AI in a way, right? It's no different than using the internet when it first came out. So it's kind of like back when you discovered internet, did you choose to use Google at that point, or did you choose to go to the library and whip out the Dewey Decimal System and find the encyclopedia for whatever topic you're curious about and go digging through books? The point I'm making is that the answers that you're going to be seeking are like in so many different ways readily available to you. But go ahead and test me on it to get, arrogantly speaking, the best answer. How about that? So a little sidebar there. But be the seeker. Find out what you need to find out. Now, I'm going to stay on the consultation topic in a way, but I'm going to segue into what is the next progression of, like, how I want you thinking as a business owner. We started, the first time I did this was with that, the economic model, right? And getting, to the point where how many contacts you need to make on any given day of the week in order to reach your goals, right? And if you haven't, like, go rewatch that video, go reread that playbook. I'm not going to get into it in depth here, but the concept is that you're able to create a lifestyle from running a business like a business, which involves tracking and knowing your numbers on a constant basis. You can't be a business owner without that department of your business. Corporations are shut down if they don't have, these tracking and reporting elements that we're talking about. And ultimately, like, you got to understand that you're in a place, Keller Williams, where, I think of it as the best value provided that we have to offer is to train and teach you and give you the resources that you need to be a business owner and to be a successful one. So take advantage of what's in front of you to do that. But it's going to take some, time and blood, sweat, and tears, and you're going to have to develop a habit out of it. But start. There's always day one, right? So live that lifestyle, that economic model lesson that we discussed. Step 2 of this is goal setting. Okay, because back to the consultation with your clients, when like what your clients' goals are and that you can help them meet them, it becomes a really important process that we just talked through, right? Because if you have the ability to refer back to your clients' goals that's going to become powerful in the process, because now, like, back to Sony's example, where if you could reframe the situation around this in a form of a question like, hey, like, I get that you want to negotiate for a house, but you've also told me it's important for you to buy a house for your family and to stop renting, and that your lease is up in another 3 months, and you're really going to be in a bad position if you don't figure something out soon. What's more important, that you do that, or that negotiate to your preference in a market that we really can't? And pause and wait to see what they say. Because if they tell you, like, well, really my motivation's changed. Talk to the landlord. They said that, they're cool with us staying as long as we want. We're renting, there. It's affordable. We're okay. We don't, I'm only gonna buy a house if it's right. It's like, okay, no, glad I know, because that's new. And here's how we need to adjust the game plan from here. And that may lead to a discussion of like, I'll let you know when we're able to go after a house that has the ability to be negotiated up. Because all these other houses that we've been pursuing so far, not only are they not selling up under or at asking price, they're selling way over in the first week. So we've got poor strategy right now. But now back to your goals as a business owner, okay? Simon Sinek is really good with this topic in terms of like your why. And this is a, kind of like loaded concept in a way, right? That kind of gets thrown out there casually of like, what's your why? Right. So I get that it's difficult, or it may be difficult to have one for some right now. For some of you hearing this, may be like, yep, no, I can clearly define and articulate what my why is, and like what I'm telling you is good for you. But also, if you're not at that point, don't feel lesser than, because it is difficult. Maybe I'm speaking on my own personal journey, but it's tough to get to that point where it's like, I can clarify what my why is. The why for somebody on this call may just be like, I want to get through my first 4 transactions so I can figure out what's next in my real estate career. Okay, fine. Short term. But if you're thinking bigger and you like have other people that you're doing this for as a common, elements of where a why would come from, or you have a passion, project or topic or whatever, something that you want to achieve in your life, and know that it's going to take money to do it, and this is the financial path for you to get there, whatever it is. But start thinking in that regard of like, there's something bigger for you out there than just selling houses. What is it? And start to define that for yourself, because what happens is it becomes a tool in a matter of like, you can come back to this when times are tough, or when motivation is lacking, when you're struggling, right? Because when you have a well-defined why that's important to you, and you're struggling on any given week to become motivated, and then you look in the mirror like, okay, this is why I'm doing this, walk up and get to work, type of pep talk that you have with yourself. Or if you're in a partnership or coaching relationship or whatever, and they know what it is, and they can refer to it like, hey, I know that you wanted to take the kids to Disney this fall. Do you have enough money to book that trip right now? No. Okay, well, is that still important to you? Yes, very. Yeah, get to work, right? But why this is also important is that it allows you to determine, what your true goals are. Because if you're in a position where you can financially calculate what's needed to achieve your why, even better. So start to correlate your why to like goals that you want to accomplish for you personally. Okay, this is where it can start to get materialistic. And like, if you want a boat and your family wants to go on the boat in the summer, and that's, part of, providing experiences for your family as part of your why, great. Have a goal of buying a boat. okay with that. Doesn't all have to be like cash flowing investments or investments into, savings or stock market or whatever, right? Doesn't all have to be frugal. I'm okay with you going about life to where like you want things that you're going to enjoy while you're on this earth. Yeah, go out and fund that pursuit. Now, here's ultimately we need to develop an income goal for your business to be able to purchase that boat in that example, or fund the goal that you have for the short term where this income goal comes from. I'm going to give you a formula right now as to how to go about that. The mission is to establish the goal for how much money you need in a year. Let's just say an annual income goal, right? Well, the first way that you start, I'm going to break it down into 5 categories of really expenses that you need to account for. This is going to total up to how much money you need to make for the year to account for all your expenses and reach your goals. So the first category is your fixed personal expenses. So these are things that like you're not going to, unless you have plans to pay it off, you're not going to get away from a mortgage payment or rent payment. You're not going to be able to not have a car. So, unless it's paid off, you're going to have a car payment. You're going to need insurance no matter what. You're going to need to have some budget for food no matter what, and shelter, right? So like things that you really can't cut. Think of it that way. Like, yes, you can go out and trade in the Cadillac for a Kia and trim down on the expense, but you can't get rid of having a car in this market, arguably. The second category would be more variable personal expenses, more lifestyle related personal expenses. So the way to think of this would be, you need food in order to survive. So that's both a fixed expense and a variable expense because although you need food in order to survive, you don't need to go out every Friday and drop $100 at dinner if it's not in the budget. So what are the lifestyle expenses, right? Like a good way to think of this is like if you were to audit your bank account and just looked at things that you could cut, a lot of those are going to be lifestyle expenses. So for example, like if you have the Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus subscriptions, and you only watch Netflix, and you're trying to cut back on some expenses, well, a frugal decision would be to eliminate Hulu and Disney in that example. And sure, you can keep Netflix, you can have them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to structure this to where you just have no luxury and enjoyment in life. I'm just trying to get you to think about, as a business owner, how to handle all your finances. So audit those non-fixed, variable lifestyle personal expenses. You don't need to go on vacation. If you can afford to, please do it as often as you can. But that's not a fixed expense unless you can afford it and it's part of your plan. Third category would be business expenses. Okay. So just, when you have a listing, you have to get photographs, you have to have a sign installed, you have to get an e-box, those are business expenses. You don't have to include like your cap to KW, and stuff like that, just because that's gonna kind of come out and give you a net, paycheck that goes towards your income. But, I would include like your KW monthly fee, for example, business cards, the $17, I think it is, Supra payment a month, right? Like those are all business expenses. Fourth category, here's where the goals come into play. Your wants and desires, your goals, the boat that you need, the $50,000 goal that you have to submit to a retirement account by the end of the year for tax purposes and saving purposes, the vacation to Disney that you want to take your family on, and it's not something you do all the time, so it's a goal and it's something you got to push towards. What do you want to do in life, right? And this is where it's like, okay, what money do we need in order to do it? So this is where that goal setting comes into play. After you've covered all of your regular expenses, both fixed, variable, and business wise, then okay, what do I want to do? Want to buy a boat? Want to buy a lake house? Want to save a bunch of money? Want to, buy a Bitcoin? I don't care, whatever. Doesn't have to be all retirement savings wise. It can be, stuff that is just part of, again, back to your why. If you have things, this is why, like, no pun intended, but when you have a why, you can now determine more goals to go out and pursue. The fifth category is you got to pay Uncle Sam and pay your taxes. So in order to get your annual income goal, you're going to need to total up those 4 categories: fixed personal expenses, variable personal lifestyle expenses, business expenses, the cost that's going to, what it's going to take to get your goals met, for what you have developed right now, for what you're looking at in front of you. Add all that up and then multiply it. I'm not here to give you tax advice, okay? So get a CPA at the end of the day. But conservatively speaking, if you apply a 30 to 35% tax rate to your business, you should be more than good. So if those first 4 categories added up to $100,000, well, in order to get that $100,000 to fund all of that, you would need to make $130,000 at a 30% tax rate. Now we've got some meat to this where it's like you have a reason for having goals, your why. You have goals themselves. So in that example, I keep using the boat to take my family on because we like boating and summer's here and something we've always wanted to do. And part of my why is to provide my family whatever they want and make everybody happy. However you define that, right? And now in order to get those goals accomplished, I know that I need money in order to purchase things. So I need to not only save for these goals in that boat, but I also need to run my life on the usual expenses that we have. Oh, and perfect. And all this actually accounts for me paying taxes too and not getting stuck come April 15th next year. Now, you need to look at this as creating a lifestyle for yourself that uses these tools. So these goals, this may seem far-fetched, but a why and your goals of what you want to accomplish and as specific as possible, and the income goal needed to do that. Those are all tools to use for your business because it's going to help you become more motivated. And the more motivated you are, the more clarity that you have on what you're motivated for. Well, when times are tough and you're struggling, and it's Monday and you didn't feel like being here, you didn't feel like getting out of bed, you don't feel like calling anybody, you don't feel like going to that appointment, you don't feel like lead generating, you don't feel like texting anybody, whatever it is. Well, you're going to find out real quick how important those goals are for you. Because if you continue to not take action in order to reach those goals, that's on you. Maybe they're not that important. Or if they are really important and you're neglecting pursuing them, that's a tough choice to make, right? Circle this back to that consultation piece of if you know what the goals are of your clients, you can now use that as a tool to when they're not, I hate to say cooperating, but if they're not getting it, they're not taking your advice, now you have a way to go back to them as far as like, hey, let's regroup. Like, I know you wanted to get your family of 5 out of this 2-bedroom apartment that you're in and buy a house. Is that still important to you or has anything changed? Oh yeah, we're really crammed in here. There's just 2-bedroom small apartment. You know that's not cutting it. Okay, good. I just want to make sure because based on that, I'm having trouble understanding, why you don't want to take my advice and understand that the Brighton market is not one that you're going to be able to go in at under asking price for. That's a different conversation that plays out. Time is yours. Last few minutes here. What do you guys need? What questions do you have? Stay on this topic or anything else?
This definitely helped me because I do have one bias consultation this evening. Again, they are looking in Brighton or Pittsburgh. They are moving from Canada to here. And I'm like, there you go again, again, Brighton. So I'm like, okay. But I think whatever you said, it definitely makes sense. And for the evening, I guess I'm a little prepared now what to talk and just be my own captain instead of them telling me what to do.
Love that. Love it. Make sure, again, the expectation is not that, like you've just downloaded all the content that you need from the training program or from whatever, right? And it's like it's stuck and you don't need to relearn anything or you don't need to focus on anything, right? So again, be the seeker, like find out what you need to find out.
So, Jason, here, maybe that might help me. Is there any buyer consultation like any of the agent is doing? Like, not new agent, any other agent, like I can just shadow them, just sit there and listen to them. I mean, instead of,
Yeah, I mean, look at it. So back to being the seeker, right? Like make that known that you want that opportunity.
okay.
Okay, so post it on that group page. Get into, conversations with people that you have a relationship with already that you feel would be okay with it. What I'll tell you is that one may be less common to really, find availability for, right? Because, the reality is these agents that would have the shadowing opportunity, they also want to make sure they do their end of it properly and win, right? So not everybody's comfortable with that type of thing. But I will on my end, I'll keep, I'll put this out there to find some people that are, you know, um, willing to allow for shadowing to occur. But again, that be the secret topic is very important.
Sure, thank you.
'Cause we have this the great thing about this company that you're a part of. I'm hard pressed to believe that if you go out seeking something, you'll just get straight up denied. That may not happen on the first time, right? And this is an example where like this is one of the more difficult ones compared to say like shadowing an open house, right? But also doable. Anything real quick? So far we've covered the economic model, which is designed to give you the specific, what you need what you need to do action wise, or actions plus the key pieces of the sales process and the actions for that, right? So the number of conversations you need to have, number of appointments you need to go on, how many people you need to be working with in order to sell X amount of units. Now you know how to develop a volume and unit based goal for your real estate business. Because if you go through this goal setting exercise, and you'll get a playbook on all this to do yourself, and you'll get resources to do it yourself as well that'll help. Now you know, like, okay, I need to net $127,000 from my real estate business. And if my average price point is $200,000 and I need to sell 27 homes, whatever the math is. In order to sell 27 homes, I need to have 78 conversations per week. We're a company of models and systems and resources and tools. And here's how to use them. So we got two of them so far that tie into to each other, tie together, but also look at how you can use what you're learning to develop yourself as a business owner into the business itself in terms of interacting and consulting with clients. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Sony. Thanks
Sure.
to everybody for being here. You'll get
Thank
the everything in the email, and contact me anytime. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Yep.